John was a man who had lived many years, carrying stories that were mostly quiet and hidden deep inside him. He was in his late 70s, a veteran who had fought bravely in a war long ago. The war was hard and dangerous, and many men like John had gone far from their homes to serve their country. Now, many years after the fighting had stopped, John lived in a small, calm town where the world moved slowly. His house was simple, with a small garden that he took care of every morning. The neighbors knew him as a quiet man who kept to himself and walked with a slight limp. John's days were simple. He woke up early every day, made himself a cup of tea, and sat by the window to watch the sunrise. Sometimes he would look at the small collection of medals he kept in a wooden box on his shelf. These medals were given to him many years ago for his courage and service during the war, but John did not talk about them much. To him, those days felt like a different life. He remembered the loud sounds, the cold nights, and the fear he had felt. Sometimes he wished people would understand what it was like to be there, but he also felt that most people were too busy with their own lives. The town John lived in was peaceful and friendly. The people there liked to come together for small events and celebrations. Sometimes they had festivals, and sometimes they had meetings to talk about how to make the town better. But John did not often join in. He preferred to watch from a distance. He was not unhappy, but he carried a quiet sadness. He had lost many friends in the war, and the memories stayed with him. The years had passed, but the feelings of loss and pain remained deep inside his heart. One day, the town announced that there would be a special event. The Queen was coming to visit, and she would bring royal guards with her. The visit was to honor the heroes of the town, especially the men and women who had served in the military. The whole town was excited. Banners were put up on the streets, and the local school children practiced singing the national anthem. John heard about the event from his neighbor, Mrs. Lewis, who stopped by to chat briefly. She asked John if he planned to attend the ceremony. John thought about it carefully. He was not sure if he wanted to go. He wondered if anyone would remember him or care about what he had done. After all, many veterans had been forgotten over the years. But at the same time, he felt a quiet pull to be there, to see the Queen and the royal guards, and to be part of something bigger than himself. It was a chance to honor those who had served, even if just in a small way. So John decided that he would go to the ceremony, but he would not expect anything special to happen to him. As the day of the ceremony approached, John prepared himself. He put on his old jacket, the one he had worn when he received his medals. Long ago, it was a little worn out, but it still held meaning for him. He took the medals out of their box and pinned them carefully on his chest. It was the first time in many years that he wore them outside his home. He looked at himself in the mirror and took a deep breath. He felt a mix of nervousness and hope. On the morning of the ceremony, the town was alive with energy. People gathered on the streets, finding places to stand and watch. Flags waved in the breeze and children laughed and ran around. John walked slowly toward the main square where the ceremony would take place. He felt the eyes of some people as he passed by. Some nodded in respect when they saw his medals, but most simply looked ahead. Busy with their own excitement, John found a quiet spot near the front, where he could see the stage clearly. The sun was shining, and the air was fresh. He looked around and saw families, friends, and other veterans who had come to be honored. The sound of a marching band began, and soon the royal procession arrived. The Queen's carriage rolled slowly down the street, and behind her marched the royal guards, standing tall and proud. Their uniforms were bright and shining, their faces serious but kind. John watched quietly as the ceremony went on. Speeches were made, praising the bravery and sacrifice of the town's heroes. John thought about the friends he had lost, the battles he had fought, and the long journey that had brought him to this moment. Though he felt small among the crowd, he also felt a sense of belonging. He was part of this history, part of this, the story of courage and sacrifice. As the ceremony continued, John noticed a young royal guard watching him from a distance. The guard's eyes met John's for a brief moment. There was something in that look that made John feel noticed, seen for who he was. It was a simple moment, but it touched him deeply. For the first time in many years, John felt the weight of loneliness lift, just a little. The ceremony was not yet over, but John's heart was full. He stood there quietly, surrounded by others, but feeling a special connection that he had not felt in a long time. The unexpected chance to be part of this grand event, wearing his medals with pride, was already more than he had hoped for. The day was warm, the crowd was happy, and John was quietly grateful. He did not know what the next moments would bring, but he was ready to face them with an open heart. This day, simple yet important, was a beginning for John, a chance to be honored and remembered in a way he never expected. The morning of the royal ceremony was filled with excitement in the small town. The streets were crowded with people of all ages. Children ran happily with their families, waving flags and wearing bright clothes. Shops along the main street had decorated their windows with ribbons and pictures of the Queen and the royal guards. Everyone was waiting for the grand arrival that was soon to come. John, the war veteran, stood quietly near the front of the crowd. His chest was heavy with the medals he had pinned on his old jacket. He felt the cool breeze, but was mostly thinking about the long years he had lived. The years of service, sacrifice, and silence. John had never expected much from the world after his return from war. Thought many had forgotten about men like him. But today was different. Today he was here with the hope that his years of sacrifice might be recognized. As the first sounds of trumpets echoed through the air, the crowd grew silent. The royal procession was arriving. People held their breath and looked toward the street where the Queen and her royal guards were expected. The guards wore shining red uniforms and tall black hats that made them look proud and strong. Their faces were serious, but calm. They walked in perfect step, moving with a quiet power that drew the attention of everyone. John watched them closely. His eyes were drawn to the young guard at the front of the line. This young man moved with confidence and respect. Remembered how it felt to be young and strong, standing for a cause bigger than himself. For a moment, John felt a connection with this guard, even though they were from very different times. It was as if the guard's presence reached across the years to touch something deep inside. John's heart? As the Queen's carriage slowly passed by, the crowd clapped politely. The Queen smiled warmly, waving to the people. Then the royal guards stopped near the stage set up in the town square. The ceremony was ready to begin. Speeches were given, honoring the men and women who had served their country. The mayor spoke about bravery and sacrifice. The sound of applause filled the air, and tears came to the eyes of some listeners. John stood still, listening carefully. Every word reminded him of the long road he had traveled. He thought about the young men who had marched beside him so many years ago, some of whom never came home. The words of thanks felt heavy with meaning, but John also felt humble. He did not want attention. He wanted respect and understanding. After the speeches, the Queen moved closer to the veterans gathered near the stage. John felt a mixture of nervousness and pride. He wondered if the Queen or any of the royal guards would notice him, or if he would simply be one face in a large crowd. He adjusted the medals on his jacket and looked around. Suddenly, one of the royal guards stepped away from the line. It was the young guard John had noticed earlier. The guard walked slowly toward John, his face kind and serious. The crowd quieted as people watched the unexpected meeting. The guard stopped right in front of John and looked him in the eye. John was surprised. He did not expect the guard to approach him, let alone speak to him. The guard removed his tall black hat, holding it respectfully in his hands. Then, without a word, he reached out and shook John's hand firmly. The crowd held its breath. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. The guard looked at John with deep respect. John's eyes filled with tears he had held back for years. This moment of honor from a young man he barely knew touched something powerful inside him. For so long, John had felt forgotten. But here, in front of many people, a royal guard was showing him respect as a true hero. Others in the crowd began to whisper and murmur softly. Many watched with tears in their eyes. Some had phones out, quietly recording the moment to share with others later. The atmosphere was full of emotion and quiet gratitude. It's a simple act of kindness by the royal guard became the heart of the ceremony. John and the guard stayed like that for a few moments, connected by something deeper than words. The young man's gesture was more than just politeness. It was a real sign of thanks and recognition. John felt proud, not for himself, but for all the veterans who had served. He realized that his sacrifice was seen, and it mattered. As the guard stepped back and returned to his place, the crowd began to clap slowly at first, then louder and louder. People cheered for John and the guard's respectful act. The energy in the square changed from formal to joyful. It was a celebration of courage, history, and human kindness. After the ceremony ended, many people came forward to speak with John. They thanked him for his service and told him how much his story meant to them. John felt a warmth in his heart that had been missing for a long time. He was no longer just a quiet man in the town. It was a symbol of bravery and respect. The royal guard's unexpected gesture, it moved not only John but the entire community. It reminded everyone that small acts of kindness can make a big difference. The day became more than just a ceremony. It became a story of connection between generations, between a young soldier and an old veteran, between respect and honor. John left the event that day with a smile on his face. He walked slowly home, feeling lighter and more hopeful. He knew that his years of silence had finally been broken by a simple but powerful moment, and he hoped that this story of respect would live on, inspiring others to remember and honor those who served with courage and sacrifice. The moment the young royal guard shook John's hand, a quiet change swept through the crowd. People stopped talking and looked closely at the scene unfolding before them. It was a small, simple act, but it carried a weight that went far beyond words. The royal guard's gesture was a clear sign of respect, and it touched everyone who saw it. Many eyes filled with tears, and some people quietly wiped their cheeks. No one expected such a powerful moment at a formal ceremony, but it was real and heartfelt. John stood still, feeling the warmth of the guard's hand in his own. The years of loneliness, the quiet pain of memories, the feeling of being forgotten, all of these feelings seemed to lift, if only for a moment. The guard looked at John with kindness and said softly, "Thank you for your service." Those words, spoken so simply, were like a balm to John's soul. He nodded slowly, trying to hold back his tears. The crowd watched in silence, moved by the deep respect shown between two men from different times. The young guard then did something unexpected. He took off his white gloves carefully and handed them to John. This was a symbol, a way to pass on honor and to say, "We remember and respect you." John held the gloves, feeling their soft fabric in his hands. The moment was overwhelming, and he felt a mixture of pride and humility. As the guard stepped back, the crowd began to clap. The applause started softly but quickly grew louder. People cheered not only for John but for what this moment represented: a bridge between generations, a connection between the past and the present. The royal guard's gesture had reminded everyone of the sacrifices made by veterans and the importance of gratitude. Other veterans standing nearby watched with tears in their eyes. Some of them quietly nodded, understanding exactly what John was feeling. They had all shared similar experiences, though few had received such public recognition. The moment was healing for many. It was as if the guard's simple act gave voice to the unspoken stories of courage and sacrifice. Reporters and photographers nearby captured the moment on their cameras. Soon, images of John holding the royal guard's gloves and shaking his hand appeared on news sites and social media. People from other towns and cities read about the touching scene. Many shared the story, spreading a message of respect for veterans everywhere. It became clear that this small gesture had a much bigger meaning. John was invited to speak at the event after the ceremony ended. His voice was soft but steady as he thanked everyone for their kindness and support. He spoke about the importance of remembering those who served and the need for respect in everyday life. The crowd listened closely, moved by the humility and strength in his words. John's speech reminded people that behind every medal and uniform was a human being with stories, struggles, and hopes. The young royal guard stayed nearby, watching John with pride. He knew that his gesture had made a difference. It was more than just following orders or ceremony. It was about showing real human kindness. The guard hoped that this moment would inspire others to honor veterans, not just on special days, but every day. After the event, John was invited to visit the local school to talk with children about his experiences. The students gathered eagerly, asking questions about the war, about courage, and about what it meant to be a soldier. John answered patiently, sharing stories that were not easy but important. He wanted the young generation to understand the sacrifices made for their freedom and peace. The Royal Guard also visited the school to support John's visit. Together, they showed a strong example of respect and connection between generations. The children were inspired by the friendship between the veteran and the young soldier. They learned that respect, kindness, and gratitude could build bridges and heal old wounds. In the weeks that followed, John's life slowly changed. He began to receive visits from neighbors and friends who wanted to hear more about his stories. People invited him to community events and asked for his advice on honoring veterans properly. John felt welcomed and appreciated in a way he hadn't. For many years, the Royal Guard and John stayed in contact, meeting often to share tea and talk quietly. Their friendship grew strong, built on mutual respect and understanding. The Guard learned about the history and sacrifices of the past, while John felt the energy and hope of the younger generation. Together, they found comfort and strength. The town decided to make the annual royal visit a special day to honor all veterans. Every year they held a ceremony where veterans were recognized and thanked publicly. The story of the Guard's unexpected gesture to John became part of the town's history, a reminder of the power of respect and kindness. John sometimes thought about the long journey that had brought him to that Datha war, the quiet years and the surprising moment of honor. He felt grateful for the Royal Guard's simple but powerful act. It had opened a door to healing and connection that he never thought possible. This moment showed the town, and soon the wider world, that true respect does not come from grand speeches alone, but from small acts of kindness that touch the heart. The Royal Guard's gesture was a shining example of how one person's choice to honor another can inspire many and create lasting change. After the ceremony ended, the story of the Royal Guard's kind gesture to John spread quickly. People in the town talked about it for days. Many felt touched by the way a young guard showed respect to an older veteran, and how that moment brought the crowd to tears. The story wasn't just about John and the Guard. It was about honoring all the people who had served and sacrificed for their country. News reporters who had been at the event shared pictures and videos of the handshake and the Royal Guard giving John his gloves. These images were shown on television, newspapers, and websites. Soon, people from other towns and cities learned about the touching moment. Many wrote letters and messages to the town, thanking John for his service and praising the Guard for his respect and kindness. The local community felt proud. They realized how important it was to remember veterans like John, who often lived quietly and didn't ask for attention. This small town became a place where stories of bravery and sacrifice were honored in a special way. The town leaders decided to create new programs to support veterans, such as community gatherings and special days to celebrate their lives. John's life began to change in small but meaningful ways. People who had once passed him by without much notice now stopped to greet him warmly. Neighbors invited him to events, and children who had heard his story came up to say hello. John felt happier and more connected than he had in many years. The respect shown by the Royal Guard had opened a door for the entire community to show their appreciation. The Royal Guard himself became well known in the town. People admired his courage not only on the battlefield but in his simple, thoughtful actions. His choice to honor John inspired others in the military and in the community to look for ways to show kindness and respect every day. The Guard was invited to speak at schools and events, sharing how small actions can make a big difference. John and the Royal Guard developed a close friendship. They met often, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. The Guard learned about the history of the war and what it was like to be a soldier in John's time. John, in turn, felt proud to have a young man who respected the past and was willing to carry that respect forward. Their friendship became a symbol of hope and connection for many in the town. The crowd that witnessed the ceremony continued to talk about that special moment for months. Afterward, it reminded them that true respect and gratitude come from the heart. People began to pay more attention to the older members of their community, especially those who had served their country. The event encouraged everyone to think about how they could honor veterans in their own lives. Schools in the town added lessons about the importance of respect and remembering history. Teachers used John's story in the Royal Guard's gesture as examples of kindness and gratitude. Children learned not just about battles and dates, but about the human stories behind them. They understood that heroes come in many forms, and sometimes the simplest acts of respect can mean the most. As the years passed, the ceremony became an annual tradition in the town. Every year, veterans were invited to the special event, and the Royal Guard's gesture was remembered as a powerful moment of honor. New generations grew up hearing the story, learning its lesson, and feeling inspired to show kindness and respect. To others, John's story also reached far beyond the town. It was shared on social media and in magazines, touching the hearts of many people who had never met him. Veterans from other places felt seen and valued. The story became a reminder that every person who served had a story worth hearing, and honoring John himself became an important figure in his community. He was invited to speak at events and to share his experiences with younger people. He talked about courage, sacrifice, and the power of respect. His words helped others understand the real meaning of service and the importance of gratitude. The Royal Guard's simple act had created a ripple effect. It showed how kindness and respect could heal old wounds and build bridges between people of different ages and backgrounds. The moment when he shook John's hand and gave him his gloves became a symbol of hope and connection. This story inspired many to think about how they treat veterans and older people in their lives. It reminded everyone that a small gesture like a handshake, a kind word, or simply paying attention could change someone's world. The town had learned a powerful lesson about honor, respect, and the strength of human kindness. John often thought about that day and the crowd's reaction. He felt thankful that something so simple had meant so much. The Royal Guard's unexpected gesture was not just a moment in time. It was the start of a new chapter for John, the town, and many others who heard the story. After that unforgettable day, John's life slowly began to change in ways he never imagined. The small town that had once seemed quiet and ordinary now felt full of new meaning. People came up to John more often, greeting him warmly and asking him about his stories. They no longer saw him as just an old man walking down the street, but as a hero whose bravery deserved respect and admiration. John felt a deep happiness he hadn't known in many years, the Royal Guard who had honored John. That day became a close friend. They spent time together sharing stories, John telling about the hard times during the war, and the Guard sharing what it was like to serve in the present day. They talked about courage, sacrifice, and the importance of kindness. Their friendship was special. It was a bridge between the past and the present. Showing how respect could connect people of different ages and experiences, John was invited to speak at schools and community centers. Children listened with wide eyes as he told them about his life and the lessons he had learned. He explained the value of courage, but also the importance of kindness and respect for everyone. His simple, honest words inspired many young people to appreciate the sacrifices made by older generations. The Royal Guard often joined him, showing that respect was not just about stories, but about living kindness every day. The town began to honor veterans in new ways. Every year, they held a special day to remember and celebrate those who had served. The story of the Royal Guard's gesture to John became a key part of the ceremony. It was told and retold as a powerful example of respect and gratitude. From nearby towns came to watch and learn. The small community became known for its deep care and appreciation for its heroes. John found new strength in this recognition. He took part in community activities, joining groups that helped veterans and older people. He helped organize events that brought people together to share stories and support one another. John's quiet life had grown rich with connection and purpose. The Royal Guard's simple act had done more than honor one man, it had inspired a whole community to remember and respect its history. It showed how a small moment of kindness could create lasting change. The town learned that heroes are not only found in grand gestures, but in the quiet ways we treat each other every day. John sometimes thought back to that day when the guard shook his hand and gave him his gloves. It was a small moment, but one that changed his life. He felt grateful for the respect he received and hoped his story would remind others to honor the courage and sacrifice of all veterans. The friendship between John and the Royal Guard continued to grow. Together, they showed the town and many others the power of respect and connection. Their story became a symbol of hope and kindness, teaching that no one is forgotten when we choose to see and honor one another. In this way, a simple gesture at a royal ceremony created a lasting legacy. It reminded everyone that respect and kindness are gifts we can give freely, that these gifts can heal, inspire, and bring people together. John's life, once quiet and alone, became a shining the example of the power of human connection and the true meaning of honor. Would you like me to help you with anything else?